Next we have 創世記1章8節から10節。神はその大空を天と名付けられた。夕となり、また朝となった。第2日である。神はまた言われた。天の下の水は一つところに集まり、川たちが現れよう。そのようになった。神はその川たちを陸と名付け、水の集まったところを海と名付けられた。神は見てよしとされた。解説。Let's get a translation of this verse before we talk about the section read. 神はその大空を天と名付けられた。夕となり、また朝となった。第二日である。God named the sky heaven. It became evening, and then it became morning. This is the second day. So actually the only thing we need to look at here is this part in red. 第二日である. We've already seen 第一日, the first day. We're going to look at the second day here. Okay, so here we have a breakdown. 第二日. This is the accent as usual. Okay, so the new word we're learning here, and you probably already know it, is ni, which means two. So 第二日, the second day. The way we're going to usually say this in speech, and honestly probably the most common way you'll see it in writing too, is 二日目, 二日目. Okay, so this is the second day, 二日目. 今日は大会の二日目です. Today is the second day of the tournament. Okay, verse 9 next. Let's read what we have here first and get the English translation, and then let's break down what's in red. 神はまた言われた。天の下の水は一つところに集まり、川たちが現れよう。そのようになった。I've translated this as, Then God said, Let the waters beneath the heavens gather in one place, and let dry ground appear. It became so. One note about then God said here. In a previous video, I translated mata as again. It's a possible translation for sure, but it actually makes more sense in the context to translate this as then. Okay, let's look at the red part we have here. Okay, so first we have 一つところに. Okay, this has the particle ni at the end, which I've included, but the main word we're looking at is 一つところ. Here's the accent. Okay, so together, 一つところに is in or to one place. We can break this down to 一つ, which is one, ところ, which is place. 一つ is a generic way of counting things. So you could say 指一つ, like one finger. You could say 携帯一つ, one phone. Whatever it might be, it's a generic way of counting things. There are other counters for specific things in Japanese, so you could say 指一本, etc. But in this case, we're just referring to things generically, so 一つ works. Okay, then we have ところ, which means place. Combine those together for 一つところ, one place. This is not common in speech. You're actually going to hear 一箇所 in speech much more often. 一箇所, one place. Okay, next we have 集まり, which is the mas stem of the godan verb 集まる, which means to gather. It is an intransitive verb. So you're not gathering something, you're not like collecting something. Something is gathering itself in some sense. Okay, so gather and then we have 乾いたち. So 乾いた is the ta form or short past tense form of 乾く, which is a godan verb, which means to dry. This is also an intransitive verb. Okay, so it doesn't take an object. When you put 乾いた before ち, you get the phrase dry ground. 乾いたち, dry ground. It's almost like saying ground that has dried, in a sense. In order to make the ta form of godan verbs that end in ku, you simply change the ku to ita. That's all you have to do. So 聞く to listen becomes kita. Kaku to write becomes kaita. Hiku to pull or draw becomes hita, etc. Very straightforward. Okay, and then we finish this section with 現れよ, which is the imperative form of appear. Comes from 現れる, which is an ichidan verb. Remember, with ichidan verbs in the imperative form, we're just changing ru to yo at the end. And this gives us the literary imperative form. 現れよ. Okay, putting all of that together, we get 神はまた言われた。天の下の水は一つところに集まり、川たちが現れよう。そのようになった。Then God said, Let the waters beneath the heavens gather into one place, and let dry ground appear. It became so. Alright, let's read verse 10, get the translation, and then finish up the explanation here. 神はその川たちを陸と名付け、水の集まったところを海と名付けられた。神は見てよしとされた。God named the dry ground land, and named the place where the waters gathered sea. God looked and deemed it good. Okay, so let's look at the red words we have up here. Okay, so first we have riku, which means land, as opposed to sea. Okay, then we have 水の集まったところ. We've already seen ところ, we've already seen 集まった. Okay, so we're just combining this together to make the place where the waters gathered. In English, we use something called a relative pronoun, where, to describe the place that we're talking about, the place where the waters gathered. But in Japanese, there's no such thing as a relative pronoun. You actually just put the verb phrase before the thing that you want to modify. So we want to modify tokoro, the place, and so we just put mizu no atsumatta before that. Mizu ga atsumatta means the waters gathered. When you put a verbal phrase like this before a noun, you can change the ga to a no. So normally we would expect a ga here, but in this case, it's used as a modifier of tokoro. So the ga becomes a no. Mizu no atsumatta tokoro. You can say mizu ga atsumatta tokoro, and it still makes sense, but you do see this change to no quite often. If you need more clarification on this, just go ahead and ask me in the comments. Okay, and we finish the section with umi, sea, and that gives us all we need to know to understand this passage. 神はその乾いた地を陸と名付け. Okay, so God named the dry ground land. 水の集まったところを海と名付けられた. And named the place where the waters gathered sea. 神は見てよしとされた. God looked and deemed it good. Alright, let's read the entire passage one more time and then we'll finish up. 神はその大空を天と名付けられた. 夕となり、また朝となった. 第二日である. 神はまた言われた. 天の下の水は一つところに集まり、乾いた地が現れよう。そのようになった。神はその乾いた地を陸と名付け、水の集まったところを海と名付けられた。神は見てよしとされた。Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one.